Call the meeting to order. Let's see, so we need a motion to adopt the agenda for today.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Steve. Have a second?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye as well. We also need a motion to approve the minutes from August 1st.
Move to approve.
It's been moved,
I'll second.
moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. Okay, well, this is an opportunity for the public to comment on any public matter that is not on the agenda of the meeting and is within the jurisdiction of the Teachers Retirement Board. However, the board may not take action on any issues raised unless it's included on the agenda and public comment has been allowed. If issues are raised that would require board action, the issue would need to be included on an agenda for a future meeting. Public matter does not include disability applications or contested cases and other adjudicative proceedings. All right, so we will start with Todd and Brian from Kavanaugh McDonald.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning. Morning. We're gonna be going through this.
We're gonna be going through the PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, behind tab 3, they got a presentation. Have it up on the screen. So.
Could we go ahead and go, or I'm just giving Dan a second to?
I'm good.
Go ahead. Okay.
Go ahead, you're good.
All right, good. So good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So Brian and I are here to present the results of the July 1, 2025 actual evaluation. It's that time of year again. So I'm just gonna go over the first few slides that are kind of just educational, just tells you why we're here, basically, and then Brian's gonna go through the results. I feel like the results this year were very kind of just, made progress, basically, so. The first slide, why does the plan need the actuary? So, as defined benefit plan actuaries, we basically help defined benefit plans develop funding strategies. So, you're promising benefit payments to all your teachers, and in order to pay those benefits, you need a strategy to fund them, basically. And so that's what we do as actuaries. Your guys are a little different compared to other plans because all your contributions and everything are set in statute. So the contributions don't change. The benefits are set in statute as well. So we come here and we measure the assets and the liabilities, and then we calculate your amortization period and your funded ratio, essentially. And then you guys as a board have, depending on the amortization period, either decide if you need to get more money from the legislature, basically. In addition to that, we also analyze the experience of the plan. So we make a lot of assumptions about, how long people are going to live, how much your assets are going to earn. And so every evaluation, we also do a look back and see, what did we assume for the year and what actually happened during the year. And we also keep track of that over 5-year periods. Every 4 years, we do an experience study. So, and we update those assumptions if we have to. And then, finally, we also report on trends. There's a risk section in the report, and we just kind of report on those, the various risks of the plan and the trends that are taking place. And now we also prepare the liabilities for your financial statements as well. What's good here is that your liabilities for your funding valuation and your financial statements are identical. So next slide, please. So I like this basic retirement funding formula or funding equation, we call it. I really like this because a pre-funded defined benefit plan, this has to be, this equation is in balance over the lifetime of the plan. If you were Social Security, where you really have no assets in Social Security, it's really just contributions coming in. and has to meet that benefit obligation every single year. So this equation for a plan like that, pay-as-you-go type plan, this has to be in balance every single year. And if it's not, and Social Security is projected to hit a shortfall, there's an immediate reduction in benefits. I think it's a 30% haircut that happens immediately. But the good news is that your plan is funded, pre-funded, so you do have assets. And roughly 60 to 70% that gets paid out of your plan comes from investment income. So there's a real efficiency to saving, so this is where I like to say as actuaries, we're professional savers, basically.
Mhm.
So, the next slide. So, just some more detail on the equation. Basically, the benefits depend on the plan provision. So the plan provisions define what is paid out and to who and for how long and when it can be paid out. And the experience of the plan. So every year you have new retirees that come on, you have retirees that pass away, you have people that terminate that may be vested and do a benefit in the future, once they hit retirement age. So the B of the equation depends on the plan provisions, basically. The C, the contribution in the short terms if we were here and we were determining determined contributions, in the short term, the contributions are going to be based on the actual cost methods and the assumptions that we're using. Your plan, the contributions are set in statute, so there's no variation in that. But in the long term, really the contributions would just be the C minus, the difference of everything else in that equation. Over the 100 years or 150 years of, benefit payments that we are anticipating. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Brian and he's gonna take us through the results.
Yeah, so that was a good high level overview. We'll kind of go through the actual results for this valuation. So we'll go to the next slide. So just starting with some highlights, like what happened for this year. So the plan experience on the assets. The market value of assets, we did earn 9.4%. That's above our assumed return of 7.3. So again, a good year, a gain on the market value of assets. However, we use an actuarial smoothing method.
Brian, sorry to interrupt right away, but that's the fiscal year July 1 to July 1, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yep, so 9.4 ending June 30, 2025.
Yep.
We do use an actuarial smoothing method for all these calculations. So when we talk later about funded ratio, or we talk about the unfunded actuarial accrued liability, all those use an asset method that is smoothed over a 4-year period. So because of the 2022 return that was lower, we had the last year that was smoothed in this year. So on actuarial value of assets basis, we actually earned 5.5, which is below that 7.3. And so we'll see later on that comes through with an actuarial loss. What's good is that later on, now we've had some good years, we have some deferred gains that should show up assuming all assumptions are met. But that's kind of the difference between that market value of the actuarial value of assets. The UAAL, or the unfunded actuarial accrued liability, increased about 100 or a little over 100 million, up to about 1.9 billion this year. The majority of that, 94 million of that, was due to the investment return, right? That 5.5 being lower than that 7.3 on the assumed return for the actuarial value of assets. So that's kind of the bulk of it this year. Funded ratio stayed pretty stable, down a little bit to 73.44% funded, again, on an actuarial value of assets basis. On a market value of assets, we're actually a little above 75%. So when we use the actual money that we have in the trust, it's higher. And then finally, the amortization period remained at 21 years this year. So we were 21 last year, 21 this year as well. Some things kind of pushed it up, some things pushed it down, but pretty stable. Next slide, there were some legislative changes that happened this past year. So House Bill 924 was passed in the 25 legislative session. This keeps the contribution rate the same for the next 2 years, but then starting July 1, 2027, it will increase by 0.1% each year for the next 20 years. So again, the extra money that we reflect in here when we're building out the amortization period, that increased contribution over the next 22, I guess, years really. That did reduce the amortization period by a year, that stair step increase in the contributions. In addition, there's a pension reserve fund that was established. That would allow some transfers over to TRS potentially if the return from inception is below 7.3. I don't know exactly what it is. I know it's above the 7.3 currently, and our assumption is that we will earn the 7.3 every year in the future. So there's really no impact to the valuation. We didn't assume any sort of transfer coming in the future.
Is that below 7.3 or is it below whatever we say our return is going to be?
So if we change our assumed rate, then it's going to
Change it, right?
It will change.
That's what I
Yeah. If
thought.
we go down to 7, then we'd have to be below 7.
Okay.
Yep. For 2 consecutive years.
Okay, that's what I thought.
If monies were transferred under that provision, would that imply that we would be investing those funds then directly?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'd have to make a new assumption about how we invest that money and what the return on that would be theoretically if that occurred.
It would
Invest it
go
the same
into
way.
cap.
Oh, yeah.
It would go into our cap.
Okay. Okay.
So Sean, I think we've talked about this before, but when you talked about 3 years, and if we're not going to need it, is that money sitting in some account, making interest?
Yeah, so that it's set up so that it's also invested by BOI, but it's in a separate fund, and it's going to continue to grow. And there are other sort of stair steps to where there are other sources of revenue that are going to feed that over time as well. So that pot of money is going to grow on its own through investment earnings as well as other revenue sources.
And what is that called?
Oh, I think they called it, what was it like? It's a pension, it's kind of a pension trust, but it's not our pension trust because it is managed by BOI. I do believe it would take a 2/3 vote of the legislature to go in and rate it, for lack of a better term, if they needed it, but it is
Okay.
that for the pensions. I'd have to look at the actual term in the bill.
No, that, we're probably not going to need it, but I'm just wondering where it's sitting and if it's making interest. Thank you.
I'll go to the next slide. The asset experience, talked a little bit about this, the market and the actuarial value. Again, the market, about 9.4, actuarial value of assets returning about 5.5. We do have about 130 million more in our actuarial value market value than actuarial value, which is that deferred gain that we have. So over the next 3 years, if all assumptions are met, it won't happen, but if we earn 7.3% for the next 3 years exactly, what we would expect is kind of on that far right here, that deferred experience. So in 2026 will be about a $56 million gain, 27, $45 million gain, and then a $26 million gain in 2028. So again, that's assuming that we hit our return exactly, but it's kind of nice buffer to have that gets reflected to help, bring down that amortization period and offset any adverse experience that we see in these next few years. Our progress towards being fully funded. I mentioned that we have a 21-year amortization period. That was the same as last year. So on this graph here, the current valuation is really the orange. Most of it's hidden, kind of behind that blue. Blue is the prior year valuation. So you can see right at the very end there, there's a little orange sliver that's really causing us to be, 1 year longer, or that's the 21 last year and 21 this year. So it's actually very, very close to being, 20 years as an amortization period, but kind of shows you where we're at. So even though our unfunded actual liability is higher, right, at the beginning, that orange is higher, some of those additional contributions help pay off that unfunded a little bit quicker than it was expected to last year. Next slide, look at the active and retired membership. So again, these are all the members in the system. Oh, go ahead.
Before you move on, can I just comment on the graphic there with the guy walking across the road? That's really scary.
So the active and retired membership, again, these are all members the active members are currently accruing benefits, right? The actively working teachers, members in the system. Retired members are those that are currently receiving benefits. And then there's also some other membership not here that are still included on all the liabilities. They have left the system, but have contributions left or maybe do a benefit in the future. So we kind of value everyone. But here, looking at the active and the retirees, a little over 20,000 active members, a little over 18,000 retired members, and just a small increase in the active membership, a 0.1% increase this past year. About 0.4% annual increase for the active membership. That's good. Like bringing in active members is kind of the lifeblood of the system. The active membership, the contributions kind of what keeps it going. Our assumption is that the active membership will stay stable from a year-to-year basis. And so seeing a 0.1% increase pretty close to what our assumption would be. The other thing that you see on here is that the active to retired ratio is down to about 1.1. So active membership staying pretty stable. The inactives, the retired members, increasing every year, right? We're paying out more benefits, and that's to be expected with a mature system as those more and more retirees come in to the plan.
And that's also part of the valuation process. So when we're doing the valuation, we anticipate that a portion of these actives are going to become retired one day. So
Where do you see that ratio going to eventually, when it maxes out in terms of the negative correspondence between those two numbers? So it reminds me of Social Security where, when FDR wrote the system, there was 8 people paying in for every person collecting benefits. Now it's down to less than 3 to 1.
yeah, I mean, you're trending towards 1 to 1 right now.
Right.
So in order for that to change, you either need to, it's a function of hiring more teachers. It could be you need more schools to hire more teachers, or your school systems are underemployed and you need to hire more. So that would be the only way that would happen.
Is there any effect of people coming into the teaching profession, paying into the system and leaving after 3 years?
They should be picked up in this. Because if they leave, you're going to replace them with another new active member. We do see both our part-time membership has become a bigger segment, so they're not full-time. And there's statistics in the report itself that show, over the first 3 years, we lose like 60-70% of all first-year members. That's just pretty common. I guess one thing, so maybe Todd or Brian, I get asked by the legislature, so we're at 1.1 right now. When does that become and it's something that's alarming to us, or does it? If we have the asset.
Well, yeah, so it could potentially, you could say it's alarming now, right? Because you don't have any, your shovel, the money coming in is based on this number, right? So, but you do have, you're pre-funded, so you do have the assets to offset the fact that you're 1 to 1 right now. So, but in a perfect world, if you have the more people you can have coming in and paying contributions, that helps the money coming in. So from that standpoint, I wouldn't say it's alarming, but it just puts more stress on the system from a risk standpoint, right? Because the amount of money coming in is fixed, and we do assume future payroll growth. Your total payroll grows by 3.25%. So if your population isn't growing, it puts pressure on that assumption, right? So if your future payroll isn't growing as much, that means you need more money to offset that fact as well. So is your plan in jeopardy? No, but it does put just a different set of things that you have to be concerned about.
That 3.25 is based on experience study, and that's salary increases plus new employees. It's both.
Yes, it's based on overall wage growth of the plan. So our underlying wage growth assumption is 3.25% or 3.5%.
3.5.
So we're just,
It's a quarter, yeah.
is it 3.25? Okay, it's 3.25%.
Okay.
So our underlying assumption is that all salaries are going to grow by 3.25%. And then on top of that, younger, like less service people typically get higher salary increases on top of that due to merit and promotions and things like that, compared to longer service folks. So,
But if our assumptions they're good, then we have nothing to worry about. The valuation is the valuation, right? Unless those
That's
things
correct.
change.
That's correct.
Yeah.
So, but you do have to worry, I mean, you have to monitor it, right? I mean, we only look back every 5 years, right? At the, or every 4 years, but over a 5-year period. So,
Are you seeing fewer teachers in other states, or do you project that we'll have fewer teachers here? Is that something that should be already baked into this a little bit?
it is baked into it. Yes,
Okay.
it is. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Todd, on the other hand, when I look at, going back to 2010, the total number of active teachers has only increased in the state of Montana by slightly over 1,000.
Right.
Whereas the retirees are up 6,000. But will that sustain itself? Because if the actives aren't increasing by much, wouldn't the total number of retirees start
Yeah.
growing more slowly?
so the number you really need to be concerned about, and it is in our risk section of the report, is the negative cash flow. So that means your money coming in versus your benefit payments going out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's under 4% right now. Which it's minus three, page 36 of the report.
Well, this report.
Yeah.
The full valuation.
Yeah, so what I would tell you is that you're in negative cash flow. I mean, your contributions coming in aren't sufficient to pay the benefits going out, so you're using your assets to make up that difference. You're only spending it at 3.84% right now, which is very good. So, the rule of thumb, you don't want to spend, be spending more than, 5% or 4% of your assets in any given year, because then that really puts pressure on your asset allocation, right?
Right.
So you're at a point right now where you're not spending your money too fast, essentially.
Mhm.
So, I mean, really, that's the crux of any actuarial valuation is, right? You want to accumulate the money, but you don't want to spend it too fast. So you really, outside of predicting what the benefit payment obligation is, you really don't need an actuary to come up with that strategy, right? I mean, anybody can do that. We need to come up with the benefit payment stream because, that's where our main task is, project out the future liabilities. But once you have that, you can come up with a million funding strategies that, don't spend your money too fast, essentially, so that your pool of assets will continue to grow, essentially.
You'll probably get to this in a second, or maybe not, but what are you guys seeing for life expectancies? Because it seems like we've plateaued over the last few years, but that's more about young people dying,
Right.
overdoses and suicides and accidents versus old people are living longer, right?
Yeah, you kind of hit it on the head. So the things that you see in the news, life expectancy is getting shorter or coming down after COVID. And that's really life expectancy from birth.
Yes.
So what we are looking at with the valuation is who's in the retirement system, right? So these are numbers that are working. We're looking at those, teachers that are 60, 65, 70 years old. How long are they going to live? And what we've seen with that, people that have a defined benefit plan in a retirement system is actually still continuing to have mortality improvements, living longer versus the overall life expectancy, again, from birth. And so it's kind of been the same thing for years and years. Is like the population that has a defined benefit plan that works in the retirement system has better mortality than kind of the general population.
That seems like a point we could use in recruiting teachers. Hey, if you end up with a defined benefit plan, you're gonna live longer because you're gonna be happy and stable.
Absolutely.
Don, make sure you add that into your presentation.
Yes.
It is actually a improvement in mortality. So we're using fully generational mortality. So we do project improvement every year.
Basically, so a 60-year-old in this valuation versus a 60-year-old in a valuation 5 years down the road. The one in 5 years, we're expected that 60-year-old to live a little bit longer.
Okay. And there's no trends within these assumptions that you're seeing here or elsewhere that you think, oh, something has changed. We might need to change our assumptions. You guys are pretty comfortable with our assumptions at this point. Is that fair?
Yeah.
We'll actually get to this here at the end.
Okay,
Jump
sorry.
ahead, but after this valuation will be our next experience study.
Yeah.
That's kind of when we'll take our deep dive, look into the past 5 years experience, and sometimes even look back longer than that if we get some more experience, to kind of make the data credible. So that'll be kind of the next big project, doing a lot of number crunching to kind of see, clearly every valuation, we need to certify as credentialed actuaries to say that we believe that these assumptions are reasonable. So clearly we do.
Yep.
We'll take a look to see if there's any minor adjustments that we need to kind of make going forward to have our best guess.
Yeah, and like the biggest thing is that we're using the base table we're using is the Pub 2010 table. So it's based on public plan retirement system data. They just updated that now to the Pub 2016 table is out now, but that base table is just a minor, it's a minor adjustment.
Lots of number crunching.
Okay.
So it just takes a long time. to
Well,
get.
AI could probably do it in 20 minutes.
But you have to look backwards, but then COVID kind of messed things up, in terms of the data itself. So, yeah, it's slow. Plus you have to have, there's organizations out there that fund these things, and the Society of Actuaries has had a hard time getting people to sponsor it. So, and then you also have to get public plans to participate in the process. So they have to supply the, participant data,
Okay.
which, I have clients that don't do it, like they just refuse to do it. So, even though they're not asking for personal identification or anything like that, but, so yeah, it's not just, it's hard.
But it seems crazy that we're 10 years behind at best, and a trend could be occurring that we wouldn't know about for another decade.
Yeah, so what the thing is with mortality, that you're looking backwards to predict the future.
Yeah,
So,
right.
I mean, that's really the hard part about it.
Yeah.
And so, but that's where we're using the generational projection scales to incorporate the annual improvement in it. So, and that new table is a minor adjustment actually in the 2010 table. So.
Which is good, right?
Which
So
is
we didn't
good.
see a big
wasn't a
difference,
big
like maybe
change.
a new updated table, if it would have been way different than the past one, like, okay, well, maybe what we had before wasn't the best to be using, but yeah, with just a minor change, it's kind of
Okay.
reassuring that, it's the data that we've been using, the mortality tables we've been using.
Okay, that's good to hear.
And we just changed to fully generational last experience study.
Yeah.
So, and then there was an actual cost to that when we did it, but now it won't be as bad.
Right.
Yeah, it should be a much less adjustment.
That's right.
Cool.
Yeah, slide 11, moving to average salaries and benefits. So average salary, a little over 64,000 currently for the active teachers, about 26,000 for the benefits. Again, about a 4.6% increase last year to this year for the increase in the average salaries. So that's a little bit above what the assumption was. Again, every individual member has a different assumption for their salary increases. Todd kind of mentioned that earlier in your career, you assume get higher percent increases versus later in your career. But 4.6, a little bit above what was expected overall. And we'll see that later as comes through as an actuarial loss, right? So salaries are higher than expected. Benefits down the road will be higher than what we anticipated last year. Again, higher liabilities.
So that's like it's kind of a double whammy thing, because it's actually it's kind of a bad thing, but it's also a good thing, because that means your total payroll went up. It grew by more than 3.25%. So that means that helps your amortization period. So even though there's a slight offset on the liability, you're getting more money coming in. So it's kind of
But we'd rather have more lower paid people than fewer higher paid people because of the benefit change. We would, but I mean, is that the way the math would work though?
no, I mean, it's if more lower paid, like,
That's a tough argument.
Yeah.
For the system in like the perfect world, you'd have high paid members that leave before they're vested. So they bring in a contribution there, but then they don't actually
That's the trick.
get the benefits later on.
yeah.
So I guess that was my earlier question. It feels like there's more of those types of individuals entering the workforce right now than there was in the past. I feel like in the past, if you started in the teaching career, you worked your 25, 30 years, whereas now people are going into the profession, they're working 2, 3, maybe 5 years, and then they're going and doing something else.
Yeah, it's pretty common in teacher systems, school systems to see that, like Sean kind of mentioned. I think in the first 5 years, it's usually over a 50%.
It seems like that would be advantageous as far as funding the system.
It is, except for it's built into our assumptions. So we're assuming that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Now, if more of them happen, then that does help, bring in more money to the system, reduce that amortization period. But because we've seen it in the past, we anticipated.
You're already anticipating. Got it.
Do we do
Another-
We're
get,
actually stop that trend,
Right,
like as an employer.
yeah, absolutely.
we get to keep
Another
those-
question I would have is, I know some of my friends have actually been teaching longer because of, the whole healthcare issue. They really can't afford to retire at 62 or 65 because the healthcare is so expensive on the outside. Has any study been done regarding that?
Yeah, so we do work with plans that do offer healthcare in addition to the pension plan. And so they do, you see, what you end up seeing is much earlier retirements at earlier ages. And where systems where they do not offer healthcare, people have to work longer or get another job when they leave teaching. So they do end up having to work longer till they qualify for Medicare, basically, if they're in a Social Security covered state. So, but if you're not, and I think that kind of goes hand in hand. If you're Social Security covered state, then, which you are here, they don't offer healthcare. But in states where they're not covered by Social Security, then they tend to offer health insurance. But that health insurance benefit is under pressure to, nowadays too. So they've had to get the pension plans in shape fiscally, because that's the guaranteed benefit, whereas the healthcare is not guaranteed. So.
Yeah, I mean, in our full valuation there, we have the statistics for the system, and on 62 and 63 are like your average age of active members, which we are on average, our membership is getting a little bit younger. Average age used to be 46 back in 2006. Now it's 44.3. However, the average higher age is actually going up. They're 34.6 years old versus 33.5 back in 2006. And then our retirees, our average age of retirement, people are waiting a little bit longer. It's 59.3 now, and it used to be in 2006, 56.5.
Is that just the next page?
Yeah, it is. So, I mean, that's all tracked in our evaluation. And nothing crazy is going on. It's not like huge changes because they're incremental over time, but our people are waiting a little bit longer to where they're closer to age 60 at least before they retire. Because if you remember, tier 1 members can retire with 25 years at any age. So for a lot of people, if they just come right out of college, I mean, that puts them at, 50 years old, they can be a retired member of TRS if they're tier 1.
I was 47 when I could have.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Brian, my question really is not significant to your actuarial assumptions. I'm just very curious for other reasons. So when you look at the 2025 stats on full-time salary versus retiree benefits, that ratio is approximately 40%, but that's a misnomer because we're comparing people that retired at lower salaries.
Correct.
That's my question. Roughly what percentage of their last salaries, maybe over the last 2 or 3 years of their career, does their pension provide?
Like the replacement ratio?
Yes.
I actually don't know what.
Do you have
It's
any idea?
It's
I think it's like 60.
it's 60%. Yeah.
About 60?
Yeah.
Up to there.
No, if they retire with 30 years, it would be 50%.
50%.
Yeah.
So if you retire at 25 years, it's going to be less than that,
Okay.
right? So, yeah. Because it's 1/60th.
I gotta add, of the average,
Yes,
over the last 3 years.
right, yeah, so the simple way ours works.
I'm sorry,
You look at a 30-year retirement, it's exactly what we're seeing here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
One other question, after you guys were here last time, you had talked about how almost every other plan has a cap on what they pay out for non-vested folks that take a lump sum distribution. So we implemented that. I don't know if you guys, was that already in this, or is that gonna be in the next one? Did you know we did that?
The interest rate, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we reduced it down to 2, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so
okay.
that's included.
Thank you.
Yeah, so your formula is, for the tier 2 folks, it's 1.85% a year. And if they work 30 years, it's 55%.
That's under the pro.
Under the pro, yeah.
Tier 1 is still.
Tier 1 is 1/60%, 1.6666. So the replacement ratio is going to depend on how many years of service they work. So you would multiply that times the number of years.
Okay.
So, but somebody, like if somebody's hired at 25 and they leave after 25 years, the fact that could be a rash decision for them once they don't realize that, you don't have healthcare coverage. So you either have to go find another job to get it, or you just have that lapse in coverage until you qualify for Medicare. That's a long time to not be covered. So
Absolutely.
Roll.
Yeah.
So this looks at the total payroll and then the total benefits. So this is kind of what we were talking about before, that total covered payroll for all the active members, at the assumption that this will increase 3.25% per year. So again, this is all the salaries. This reflects the members that leave 1 year and then have some new hires come in to replace them the following year. So this is that total payroll, and then also the total benefits that are paid out each year. So over the last 15 years that we're showing here, it's actually just a little over about a 2% increase in total payroll. Those first 5 years were pretty static, right? So lower than our growth assumption. The last 10 years, a little bit higher, been closer to 3%, but still below that 3.25%. But again, this is some of the stuff that we'll look at with this next experience study overall, where, including this assumption. On the next slide, looking at the assets. So the market value of assets is really the blue column going up. The actuarial value of assets is that orange line going across. And so this really shows the use of that asset smoothing method. So the market value, you kind of see going back a few years, right? So it's had some lower years of total assets and then a big jump and then back down. That actuarial value, that orange line, is much smoother, right? Much more stable than market value. So that's really the reason we use that smoothing method, is to help just reduce the volatility in these results on a year-to-year basis, because again, we're funding over a long-term period. Over this period, 15-year average on market value was 9%. So pretty solid. We have dropped off 08 and 09, which clearly helps that average. So if you look at a 20-year period, would it be up in the 9%, but it's kind of where we're at.
Brian did mention this earlier, but if we earn 7.3% for the next 4 years and continue to do that, there'd be nothing to smooth. Like the numbers would be identical. Right. So.
The next slide. This really looks at, I mentioned the actual gains and losses, one thing that we look at each year. So this is what changed over the prior year, again, from July 1, that is different than assumed. And so any of those bars going to the right are what we call actuarial losses, or the experience was less favorable than was assumed based on the actuarial assumptions. Anything going to the left are actuarial gains, or it was more favorable than what we assumed based on the assumption. So clearly here, the investment income kind of swamps everything else. That's that 94 million that we were talking about, where we earned 5.5% on the actuarial value of assets versus the 7.3. So again, it doesn't seem that far away, but even less than a 2% difference is 94 million here, kind of swamping all the demographic. So small losses on the pay increases that we talked about, higher than assumed. retirements. We had some people that retired a little bit earlier than assumed this past valuation. So over the long term, we expect these gains and losses to kind of balance each other out, right? We're never going to have them down to zero, but we're hoping that they kind of offset over the long term. Okay. And then just to kind of wrap up all the funding results for the system in total, actuaries, so we have lots of numbers on here. The total normal cost rate up at the top is really the ongoing cost of the system. We expect this to be fairly stable, and it was set 10.76 last year, 10.8% of pay. That's 10.8% of pay to fund these ongoing benefits for these active members. The members contribute 8.15%. So the difference is really what the employer, what the system needs to pay to cover this ongoing cost of the system. So that's that 2.65%. We put in the fixed contribution, right? Every year we put in that 11.96, or at least for this year, 11.96. So the difference between that normal cost rate and the 11.96 that we're putting in is the rate that goes to fund that unfunded liability. So this is what gets calculated on what's our amortization period. All that extra money goes to pay down that debt or that unfunded liability over the time period. See your actual liability, 7.2 billion.
So so we are anticipating that 0.1% over that 20-year period that starts in fiscal year 20, July 1, 27. So that's included in that contribution rate. But yeah, so in terms of just the higher you can get that amount to go towards the unfunded liability is really what you're looking for in terms of accelerating paying off that unfunded liability.
The total unfunded liability, about 1.9 billion. Again, that rate goes to pay that amount off over the next, hopefully 21 years. Funded ratio, we kind of talked about 73.4%, down a little bit on the actuarial value, but again, a little over 75% on the market value. So again, that's good. Over the next 3 years, we have those deferred gains to kind of help offset any adverse experience, or if we do have good experience, helps to improve that funded ratio, pay off that unfunded liability. And as we mentioned, the 21 years for the amortization period, same as last year. Again, if we use the market value of assets, so had we recognized all these deferred gains, the amortization period would actually be 19 years.
And your funded ratio would be 75.2% as well. So.
All right, digging down in the weeds here a little bit. If we look at that actuarial value of assets at roughly 5.3 billion. So earlier in a few slides ago, our spend down rate is roughly 3.85%.
Yes.
And if our actuarial gain is 7.3, then we should be netting something around 3.5% on that value every year, which is about 170 million. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, that's built into you're earning interest in all the money that's coming in
Right.
and staying in.
Right.
And you lose interest on all the money that gets paid out, right? So it does offset. But your asset allocation has investments that produce income as well to help meet your benefit obligation, because the money coming in isn't sufficient, in terms of just contributions versus benefit payment out.
But yes, and that goes back to those very first slides, that C+I, right? The whole purpose of pre-funding was so we can put money into the trust, have it earn that investment income to help pay for these benefits, right? So you're not having to increase the contributions to just pay the benefits that are due each year, right? So it kind of helps in that form.
So 21 years, where do we sort of rank with other plans that you guys look at? And is 20 to 25 still in the range that it's deemed acceptable by?
So I don't know if it makes sense to compare you to other systems, because some systems, the actuary determines a contribution, and the amortization policy is independent of the money coming in. So they could be at 25 years, but they're actually making that 25-year payment every year. Okay, so I would say that let's keep, the difference between 21 and 30 is very small. Because, you know, in terms of that 9 or the 9.3 or whatever, I can't read that far anymore. The 9.31% that's
Mhm.
going towards paying off your unfunded accrued liability. So we just, Brian had just mentioned earlier, if we take off that, if we take off the 128 million, add that to the assets, that 21 goes down to 19. So if you were to add that, if you added 120 million, that 21 could go to 25, you know, so, because it
Yeah,
works.
not linear.
It's not, it goes faster up than it does going down.
Hmm.
So, but I would say compared to other plans, I would say you're in good shape because your funded ratio is, you know, it's in the ballpark of, you know, most other plans around the country. But the key metric here is that you're not spending, you know, your negative cash flow is manageable, right? So you could have a plan that's like 90% funded, but if they have a -7% negative cash flow, they're not going to stay 90% funded very long. So, you know, you could have a pretty significant asset loss and, you know, so, and they'll start to trend down. So,
Okay.
the fact that you've been trending up, you know, the baby boomers are starting to, you know, starting to work their way through the system. Your average age of your active folks are coming down, you know, which is good. That means people are working longer, more time for those assets to accumulate. I think just from that standpoint, I think your plan is in great shape, you know, so it can be a fallacy to start comparing to other plans,
Fair.
you know, unless you're picking one out that is identical to you. And, you know, and then you can say, okay, well, that one is, we're the same, or that one is probably is in worse shape or better shape, you know, so.
I think that is a really good point. Comparing our plan to another that isn't exactly the same is a slippery slope that legislators often do. Yeah, so-and-so is this and that, but they've never really gone on a deep dive to see how we're similar or how we're different.
The other thing that is good news as well is, you know, our normal cost rate at 10.80. If you just look at tier 2 members, it's actually lower than that. So as more tier 2 members come in, we're going to have a higher percent available to pay off that unfunded liability. What's like 10.42 is what the normal cost is for tier 2 members.
Yeah, it's a great point. So as that trends down, that frees up more to go to that unfunded liability.
That's already baked into this whole
It is.
valuation.
Well, no, but, no, because we're only valuing the current population. So as the tier 1 folks retire and we replace them with tier 2, that, you'll see that normal cost rate trend down over time.
And the funded ratio trend up.
Well, the funded ratio will trend up as you're making, you know, as you pay it off, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's either gonna be through like the amortization schedule, or your assets could outperform, and you could have good experience in regard to all the other actuarial assumptions. We don't really rely on that. We just rely on that amortization, that 21-year amortization schedule. So, and you saw that earlier chart where we showed the progress towards 100% funded. You can see that the payments, like that, you don't pay it off, you know, in the beginning, you're kind of just treading, you're holding ground. And then as you get down to, you know, 10 years, that's when you start really paying it off.
We've seen charts that just felt like this
Mhm.
in the past. We could never pay it off. We've had those years.
Yeah.
Okay,
So Todd, the 10.8 though, that is reflects the tier 1 and tier 2 members.
That's right.
in
It's the
back.
average normal rate for everybody.
So that's a blended rate, but as more and more tier 1s retire, it should come down, and we should have more to pay down.
just one more slide we want to mention. We kind of talked about it a little bit, but we do have an upcoming experience study. So after this valuation, we will look at the last 5 years of history, kind of do our number crunching. Kind of the biggest project we have is actuaries, lots of number crunching. So we get really excited about that. And that's where we'll kind of look at all the current assumptions, the current actuarial methods for developing the valuation, and to see if there's any recommended changes. We'll come back to the board and board, you guys have the ultimate decision to set those assumptions. Again, we'll have recommendations, but as fiduciaries, it's kind of your duty to elect those assumptions. So that'll kind of be the next big project that we have before the July 1, 2026 evaluation. So it's been, I mean, really good discussion. I feel like good questions. Yeah, just out there and let you know or ask if there's any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, this is a time for public comment. And I know we have just a little bit of public in the room. Thank you for coming. We also have some people online. It looks one or two.
Believe it's just one. I think
Okay.
The others are. Okay.
Okay. If there is any public comment. Otherwise, we need a motion to adopt the July 1st, 2025 valuation.
So move.
And seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to adopt indicate by saying aye.
I,
Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See a couple of you at NCTR.
Okay. See you down there. Right. So we are on to our administrative business and our investment report with Daniel.
Yeah, so last BOI meeting was end of August. And went over some administrative things that I won't bore you with, but we did look at a budget. And I would just say, with regard to the BOI budget, they run a pretty tight ship over there. And if I look at what we're being charged for the results that we're getting and the level of professionalism and just the high quality work, we're getting a heck of a good deal, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, we're paying a lot less than we would to darn near any other third party if we hired someone to manage that.
What is the total coming, like 45 basis points?
It's less than that.
Is it really?
Yeah. Yeah, and we're getting above average returns with lower risk than what you see out there. And so it's hard to beat that. So we're pretty pleased with how things are going. A few increases here and there, but we actually had a nice decrease because they're going to let us at BOI manage our own payroll and some of those other things that we're going through another department in the state government, and it's going to save us maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars or something like that. So pretty good deal. Returns have been really good. Obviously, we just talked about the fiscal year was great. I think the smoothing process is because 2022 was not so good. So we're getting through that. That'll drop off here shortly. And then we'll hopefully see things get better. Although the going forward, there's always worries, right? And right now the worries are that valuations are pretty high. Although if you take out the top 10 companies and then look at valuations of the rest of the market, they're a little bit high. If you add those top 10 companies and market cap back in, they're very high. So we're probably more concentrated in a small number of large companies than we've ever been right now. And it's pretty much all related to the excitement around AI. I'm a little skeptical. We'll see how things shake out. If it's as good as advertised or what some of those folks think it might be, then maybe they're not overvalued. If it takes longer for the productivity gains to work its way through the entire economy and other industries, maybe there'll be a bit of a reckoning. What I do know is those companies are spending hand over fist, hundreds of billions of dollars to try to be first at the next generation of AI. And they're not all going to get there, at least not at the same time, probably. So there's probably going to be some things to happen there. I think we're ahead of that. We certainly own, you know, a fair bit of those companies. That's one of the reasons we've done so well, but we're very diversified. We have lots of other investments and things that should be less correlated for sure. And if AI really is a big deal and works its way through the economy and everybody gets more efficient, we've got a whole lot of investments in those other companies that will become more efficient. That should be helpful to you. So I think we're in a pretty good spot. That's one big issue. Valuations are a little stretched. Inflation and interest rates is the other. There are some things out there that we think are inflationary. And if the Fed is going to continue to reduce rates, there's a concern that inflation comes back, hopefully nothing like it was in 2022, 23. But if that happens, then the Fed will have to either raise rates, or if they stay low, we'll see long-term rates go up on their own. They don't control the long end. So, and that would be probably bad for markets, certainly bad for fixed income and a few other investments. So concerns there. We've got a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things going on these days. Hard to keep track of it all. We sure hope that the data we get from the government is accurate and we can count on it. With the government shutdown, the most pressing concern is that maybe the Fed won't have a labor report or some other reports when they meet next. So lots of concerns on the horizon, but I guess we can celebrate some really good returns looking back.
I'm always amazed at just how well we do. And I look at the teachers on the teachers' retirement boards that are investing their own money. And I'm just so grateful that we don't have to do that, in all honesty. I mean, we know we have just this amazing group of people up at the BOI. And I see boards where there are people like me investing their money. And I might be good at my own, but nobody else is.
It's complicated. The level of due diligence and review they do on some of these things, it's unbelievable what they do. And the returns are great, and the level of risk is really, you know, we're lower than average, like I said, risk wise. So really good.
Dan, are there active managers on our private placements, or is that something that we do internally on our own?
We are a direct investment on almost all of our private placements. Yeah.
That lowers
There's,
the overall.
yeah, we don't have that extra layer. Yeah, and so we do the due diligence ourselves, and we're big enough now that when we go in, we can go in at a preferential cost structure to a lot of things. So it works out really well. I would say, to your point, there have been a lot of folks that have kind of done some math and looked at things, and the way that we're structured seems to be better than what everybody, in terms of efficiency, because we would have probably 5 or 6 different entities within state government all running their own money. And so not getting the scale and the experience and that oversight. I think it's a better model than what you see out there too. So I agree.
You too.
Very good.
Thank you, Dan. We also have our financial statements and budget reports from Nolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. We're on page 18 here in your packet. These are the numbers as of August 31st, 2025, in comparison to the same time last year, August 31st, 2024. So kind of bouncing off what Member Trost discussed, we did have, if you look at our total investments there on the balance sheet, they're up about 220 million from this point last year, which reflects that 9.4% investment return, or return on investment. So really there's nothing else in like our other assets that really sticks out. I mean, they're very similar to where we were at. We haven't made any big purchases or anything in that time frame. Down to total liabilities, same thing. I mean, there's really nothing that will jump out. It's very similar to where we were sitting at this point last year. And then, we'll obviously get to the year-to-date income loss there at the bottom. Last year at this point in August of 2024, we were about 40 million, in the black, and this year we're just slightly in the red at this point. So the moving on to, unless there's any questions on the fund balance, moving on to on the balance sheet, moving on to the fund balance on page 19, you can see the investment revenue, our contributions are almost identical to, where we were at last year, and that's a trend that we will pretty much always see, since our rates are the same. But the investment revenue is down, about 40 million, which is why our total revenue is down about 40 million compared to where we were at last year. Which, obviously puts with our benefit payments, which is our largest expense, of course, puts our revenue over expenses in the negative, but just slightly, not even $1 million. So our ending fund balance is still that 220 million increase over where we were at last year. So. And then on page 20 here, we have just, our revenue by sources and our expenses by type. If you can see, the expenses are almost identical. I mean, we're trending we have a little bit less than we were sitting at August 31st of 2024, but the revenue, of course, is mainly from the appreciation and of our assets. Last year, we had a 74 million, and this year at 24 million in the, but at least it's, positive. So that's a good thing.
Under supplies and materials, we had 40,000 last year, and now 3,400. What accounted for that supplies and materials?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to look. It's likely from our asset broker expenses. We probably just paid those. We hadn't paid. So we have really big enterprise agreements with ITSD that
Some of them
typically
are biannual, right?
No, they're just annual, most of them, and we pay those, like last year, we probably paid them before August 31st. And this year, I think there was a discrepancy, so that's why we held off and we just paid those, I think, here in September.
Okay.
So we had to work out that discrepancy before we paid the bill, basically.
Okay.
Member Chamberlain, there expenses like the Microsoft Enterprise Agreement or share of that for the entire state's agreement. They typically get billed in August, but as Nolan indicated, we had a discrepancy. I had contacted ITSD and they issued credit and they had advised us to hold off on payments as opposed to paying it and then having them needing to credit us back.
So because you noticed the discrepancy, we actually saved money.
Well, yeah, that's how I want Sean to see it for sure.
No, that is exactly how it was, yeah. So when those ITSD bills come in, I forward those to John to do a deep dive in to make sure that everything is as it should be, and he's really good at catching anything that may not be correct. And most of the time they're pretty accurate. So I mean, but yeah, we definitely have caught a few things over the years. But that's not the savings that you'll see. That's just a timing of the payment. I mean, obviously, like if you look at this as of September 30th, it's gonna have a large increase in that supplies and
I
materials.
understand. Thanks.
The budget is really, obviously, we're 2 months into the fiscal year. In July, there's very few payments being made because a lot of it is attributable actually to fiscal year 2025. And so, so really these budget projections this early in the fiscal year are very difficult to, I would anticipate our budget, we typically come in anywhere from 100 to 200,000 surplus, but I mean, right here, we're projecting a $250,000 surplus, but I would expect that to go down before the, fiscal year. We do have like an open position that's pretty much been open this whole fiscal year, and that'll eventually get filled. And yeah, so I mean, don't put too much stock in the 250,000 surplus, but I do expect us to have a surplus like we have since, yeah. Or so.
Cool.
And these other pages are kind of more detail, again, so early in the fiscal year that you're not gonna get a lot of information. As you can see, there's a lot of zeros. We hadn't even paid an ITSD bill yet. So there, I wouldn't put too much stock into that one either at this point in the fiscal year. And then our delinquent agency report on page 23, there is, at this point, there's no delinquent agencies, that has been, recorded. That was just as of that report being created, there was one school that hadn't paid, and we have since gotten that report in, so.
Seems like a frequent flyer.
There are a few of those, yes, and that is one of them.
Imagine some of those.
Really amazing.
Someone just walked.
If there's no other questions, thank you.
Sean, I do have a question. You and I had talked about the audit fees. Could you go over those again? I see, they went from 93 to 120 or something like that. Talk to us about the audit fees.
So let me get to that page. They are biennial, so this is the first year of the biennium, and I think Nolan, you put the whole amount in.
No, I didn't this
You
time,
didn't?
yeah, which I could do if you guys would prefer to see it that way. I didn't anticipate that they're gonna, cause it just always gave a false impression, I guess, of that, we were gonna, that we had a budget of, I think it's more, closer to like 180,000 for audit fees. So I just put in like 120 as a, a buffer. I don't anticipate us going over 120 this year. Whatever is remaining of that 180, I mean, I could go get the actual number, but whatever's remaining from that. So if we end up spending $100,000, then they'll have 80,000 in the budget for next year. That's all they could charge us, But to that point, I mean, our audit fees have increased drastically over the last 10 years or so.
Yeah, they have. I mean, and those are set by the legislature. Once they set them, that's what they're allowed to charge us, and they pretty much charge us the full amount over the 2-year period.
Yeah, very
To the
close.
penny, or, pretty
Yeah,
close.
it's very close. I mean, they never go over, but yeah, it's
Yeah, so they're like
It's a substantial-
$7,500 a month.
it's a substantial expense, correct? And they're not here 12 months of the year, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I mean, I did reach out to the deputy legislative auditor and just, I pointed out the percent increase, and, and with that, you have to also remember prior to 2000, well, even in 2013, there were no GASB 67 and 68 audits. But they do those separately for us. So that's a different engagement. And I pointed out that we do have our own internal auditor, and they are taking it under consideration so that it may reduce some of our GASB 68 audit costs, but I don't think it will affect our overall normal audit.
Is it appropriate that you get a hold of them again and say that there's some concern by the committee?
I can pass that on again. Yes, I passed it on the first time, but I can certainly do that again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, Nolan. And we're on to the discussion item of tentative 2026 meeting dates. So when I'm looking at because we don't have the next one in there right now, because I'm looking at it. The next meeting date is December 5th. And then February 6th, May 1st, August 7th. I mean, it gets way out there. None of us really know where we're at that point, but December 5th, let's look at that one.
Doesn't work for me. I mentioned this at the last meeting, that I'm gonna be on a cruise through the Panama
Oh,
Canal.
that's right.
So, and in February, I've got a problem with that date too.
Okay.
If there's any possibility at this point that we
Yeah,
can
let's look ahead.
change it. I'll be gone from the 31st of January to the 14th of February.
Okay.
You're acting like a retired guy.
But funny thing is, you gotta plan these trips like a year in advance.
Really?
Yeah. So. I know it's a rough life.
So December 5th does not work. So when is your cruise when is that?
Yeah, that one I'm probably, I'm,
I just
it's
missed-
possible that I can do a Zoom thing, but.
Yeah,
on a
no.
cruise
Don't
ship.
try to.
Yeah, I'll be gone until the 17th of
Okay.
December from the
So we-
24th of November, so.
If it doesn't affect anybody else, we would still have quorum, so we
Yeah.
could just do that and you could miss a meeting.
Yeah,
That's
that's
okay.
I don't wanna miss two in a row though.
No,
so.
no, let's not do that.
Yeah,
I can't do February 6th either.
Okay, let's look at February then. And you're not back until the 14th. Could we do something that week of the 16th through the 20th? Is that February doesn't have to have a certain,
No, it's what we can set it, whatever we need to.
and you're not doing wrestling this
I'm
year,
not.
so we could do, why don't we look at that week of February 16th through the 20th? Could you guys do the 20th?
absolutely.
I can.
You can't do the 20th. How about any of those other dates that week? Like not a Friday? I know Fridays
Yeah,
are bad for you.
Full week.
No, are we closed on President's Day or is that?
I think that is.
That's the
all-
22nd.
Yeah.
No, President's Day is the
16th.
16th,
Oh,
which I'm good with, but I
Yeah,
assume
think
that
it's a holiday.
it's a holiday for this office.
Just come back for the meeting.
Okay.
Not doing that.
That's a really bad week for me. I mean, I could possibly do the 17th that week. The Tuesday, but
Was that week, the weekend between the week of the 9th, was that not good for you?
no, I'm not back.
You're still gone.
Yeah,
Thanks.
sorry.
That's right.
Although on that trip, I'm just gonna be at a condo in Mexico. I could actually probably do that one by Zoom.
Okay.
If you guys wanna keep it on the 6th, I will.
you can't.
On February 6th? Yeah,
6 doesn't work for you though,
What
right?
about the
Tanya?
13th?
6th doesn't work for me.
I could do at this point. I don't have any.
I could make the 13th doesn't.
If the 6th works for everybody else, just go with it.
But it doesn't work for him either, so then
No.
we would still have a quorum, but
yeah.
Can you join on the 13th from?
Yeah,
So,
I could.
and then the 13th does work for,
Yeah, but not,
I can make the 13th work.
okay.
It was the next week.
Oh,
let's do the 13th then.
and then, sorry to look at one that far out, but that May 1st meeting is one that we'll need to firm up. I mean, we could do it in December, but that also, because we'll schedule the actuaries to come present the results of the experience study at whatever our May meeting is, so. If we know that doesn't work right now, it'd be better to.
Earlier in May is better for me, but
That one works fine.
I'm fine with May 1st.
Okay. All right, cool.
all right. Thanks, you guys. So December 5th, February 13th, May 3rd. No, I'm just gonna. December 5th should be set right now, correct? All right, and then February 13th, 2. May 1st, we'll relook at that one in December, because I know as you get closer, things happen. So yeah, and now it is another time for public comment. Seeing none, so we need,
We're February 13th. Oops, right?
yes,
No, the 6th, we went back to the 6th.
No,
Right, no, oh, that's right, I'm sorry, sorry.
It's February 13th.
yes,
we have, next thing is interest credited to member accounts policy, and it is an action item.
Oh, right.
So, Madam Chair, we presented this draft policy at our last meeting for you to review and discuss. And, there weren't any changes requested, so we didn't make any changes other than just to update the actual dates of when it would go into effect. Provided that the board votes to approve it. And again, we thought this was necessary to give the board, some sideboards and guidance on how you set the interest rate credited to member accounts. Something official, and basically what it says, it will be the lesser of 2% or whatever the average projected stint is for that year. And so we'll continue to set the rate every May for the following fiscal year. But going forward, we would not set it higher than 2%. if there's any questions about the language itself, we can certainly answer that, but I don't think there weren't any revisions requested last meeting.
It's good.
Yeah.
All right, then I need a motion to approve the interest credited to member accounts policy.
I move that we approve the policy as it stands.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
I,
Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. And I probably need to sign that.
Yes.
Okay. So next meeting date again, December 5th, that's there. And now we're on to the executive director's reports.
All right, Madam Chair, members of the board, we'll be behind tab 5 now. There's not a lot to look at here. Just a little bit of narrative. From an operational perspective, I'm just going to give the board an update. We are doing webinars for the TRS 101, which is for new to mid-year or mid-career members, and the Ready, Set, Retire presentations. I think the only in-person presentations we're making this year is at the MFPE annual conference. So the rest of these will all be webinars, and I did get a few numbers or actual registrations from our communications team. So the one that was held on September 16th, we had 35 TRS 101 registrants and 50 Ready, Set, Retire. Looking ahead to October 8th, we have 58 signed up for the Ready, Set, Retire, and 48 for the November TRS 101 meeting. And then the rest of them, we already do have some registrants, but they will continue to grow as they get closer. So pretty good turnout for those. And you can touch people that are in Poplar versus, Ekalaka or wherever they're at. They can do it when it's convenient for them. So it seems like it's the way to present these seminars that give members the best chance to attend.
How are we getting the information out to them?
My question.
So it's on our website. We put it in the newsletter. We actually had MFPE also help us with sending out a blast to their membership as well. That's been our primary means. Am I missing anything? Oh, yeah, and we sent Darla and Lexi made a flyer that went out to employers, and we asked them to post it in their lounge. Right. So
That seemed to be the thing that triggered the most registered.
Yep. Good. All right. Okay, then if there are no questions on that, as far as staffing goes, Nolan mentioned we are in the process of recruiting for a retired payroll benefit officer, which is a change. We went through an initial round of trying to recruit for a retired payroll benefit specialist, which is a lower pay grade, lower level of complexity to the work. And we had a couple of pretty good candidates, but by the time we offered them the position, which we didn't drag our feet, they both withdrew. So looking ahead, I mean, Tammy and I are fully aware. Natalie's been very straightforward about it. In the next couple of years, maybe shorter, she is going to be looking to retire. So we worked with HR to increase the complexity of this job and the pay, and we're going to recruit it at a higher level, which hopefully will bring us better candidates, and we'll have somebody that will be, better prepared to fill in when she's out of the office and possibly be a good candidate when she ultimately does retire. And that's our retired payroll supervisor position, who is the primary person responsible for running our month-end payroll at each month. And so if that doesn't go as it's supposed to, we got about 18,000 mad people. And 35 million that did go out the door. Yeah. So it's a very important position. As far as legislative interim goes, SAVA has met a couple times. I did tune into their September 25th meeting. They didn't have anything on the agenda for pensions, but they were going to work on adopt their work plan. It looks like they're only going to have us, there is no pension specific study this interim, which this is the first time since the 2013 to 15 interim that we don't have a targeted pension study. So that's kind of, I mean, I think it's good. It means that they're not terribly concerned where the pensions stand right now. So they'll have, I'll go up and present the results of our evaluation in November. Once we have our experience study results, next summer, I will present those to them at their July meeting. And then, at their following November meeting, so next November, we'll present the experience result, or not the experience, the valuation results and our, any pending or any legislation the board might be having come forward. So it's gonna be a pretty light, interim as far as interaction with the SAF committee this next 2 years.
Sean, who are the elected officers?
So Senator Manzella is the elected chair. And I'll send you an email. I can see his face. He's a newer legislator, is the vice chair, but it was a Republican chair and a Democrat vice chair. I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
You bet.
So that's it for you, Sean, and we have another opportunity for public comment. Make sure nobody online. So this is our time scheduled in here for a break, and we were gonna go till 10:15. We're a little bit ahead, so let's go to 10:10.
On the break?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I go on.
Call the meeting back to order. And we're on to our internal auditor's report.
Madam Chair, for the board. Thank you. So I finished my third year of audits. Pretty much my process, I haven't changed much of anything. On page 2, numbers 10 or 11 and 12, I added a more significant follow-up process for schools that I found multiple errors with. I will just random.
Sorry, we're behind tab 6.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Fine, I got ahead of myself or something.
What page number are you, is it 30, 31, 30 and 31?
Oh, here, there it is.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry, Chris.
No, that's okay. My page 2 is obviously different than your page 2. So the schools that I find that have significant errors, I'm gonna randomly the following year, just request a month, just a one random month, and go through and make sure all of their corrections have been made. They're not making the same mistakes, and then if I do find that they're still making the same errors that they have been, I'll just request the whole year and review that whole school year, and then do some individualized training with their staff. I have done that once this year so far. And I worked with Impera on that. We did a teams training with their clerk. They're just separating. They didn't separate Impera and PERS or TRS. They're just needed to learn to start from scratch. And then currently, the TRS staff and the Impera training staff, we're in the discussion stages of collaborating. We're gonna create some training videos, webinars for clerks, especially the new clerks, to answer questions and go over the basics. I think we're gonna be creating a welcome letter to the new clerks and then directing them to where to find all of the what's the word? The fact sheets and that will help them get started. So this year, the service and salary not reported on the 23 audits that I did complete. It looks like they that calculated out to $468,056 in employer-employee contributions that were owed to TRS. And that number is actually a little bit higher. And the next one, the reported an error to PERS, those contributions. When, this one school, they had withheld contributions and supposedly reported it to PERS, but then in working with their auditor, they didn't report anything to PERS. So it ended up turning into salary not reported to TRS. So, now Ampere is working with the school also to, find out, get all of those corrections made. And we
What
also
level-
found,
Excuse me, but what level of accountability is held to the clerks in the school districts in this case? Because this seems like a big number to me. What are the consequences and the time frame?
well, they, like our active team, they create the buybacks and send them off. And it's usually within a month of when I send the reports and give them the reports to do this. And the school district is required to pay the employer-employee shares of the contributions that are owed. And most of the schools are pretty quick about paying those bills. As far as this one school, I did have a meeting with their financial department and all of the business. I explained what was going on because there was a lot more than what they needed to know what was going on with the school. So, and I had a meeting with them, last year. And I'm not sure, I know they took it to the board, so I'm not sure the exact consequences. Well, I do know the exact consequences for that clerk. She's no longer there. But, so now I'm working with a new clerk and we're working pretty closely to make sure everything for fiscal year 26 is set up the way it's supposed to be from day one. I've already gone through all of that with her. The reported and error to TRS, those are mostly, the extra duties that were reported in error, and I know a lot of these will not be, issues this year, like the lunch duty, concessions managers, those little, supervisory duties. If it's a full-time teacher, those will now be reported to TRS instead of in para, if that's where they were being reported before. But we did send refunds for that amount of money for the employer and employee contributions. And then, the working retiree issues, most of those issues are just not sending in the paperwork. There's not a lot of not reporting the working retirees. And then the total findings that I got this year, there was in contributions, the employer and employee contributions that were owed to the retirement system were $1,021,112. And that was mostly, there were 3 schools that we knew were going to be issues. So that's a lot is from those 3 schools. And then there were a couple that were surprises that I had no idea there would be issues, but again, I'm not seeing that kind of so far this year with the schools I'm auditing. I'm not seeing anything even close to those errors.
Chris, if there are debits like that take some time to collect, are there interest or penalties charged?
Yeah, there's interest monthly.
Okay.
Interest is added monthly. So that's just the basic the basic amount there
Yeah.
without the monthly. I know there's one school that's, hasn't paid. There's a significant amount that they haven't paid yet, so we're still working on getting in touch with that school. That's been a struggle. But I did have my first school that has no errors whatsoever.
Oh, wow.
So, yes.
Wow. That's awesome.
Well, she's been there for, she's a clerk that's been there forever. She was there when I was teaching, so.
And member Chamberlain, just to jump in, our service and salary not reported buybacks, when those are set up after these errors are discovered, those are at the actuarial rate of return, so the 7.3%. And
Yep.
that accrues monthly, so.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
And then this year I have 32 audits scheduled, what we decided to is to get through more of them so that we can get through more schools each year. I'll do like a few really big schools and then try to knock out a whole bunch of the little smaller ones. That way we can get through more each year. And then the last page is just the schools that I did audit this year. And like I said, I don't just do 1 year. I concentrate on the first year, and then if I need to go back several years to get all of the errors all the way back to when the employees started and finding the errors that way, that's.
Is there an expectation from a school district on how often they would be audited?
Yes, I have a calendar of, like the bigger schools are every 3 years. And I have it separated out by contributions.
Okay.
So the ones that make the most contributions, I'll do every 3 years, then 5 years. It's like the little schools, I think are like every 7 years.
Okay.
Unless there's an issue, then that's not written in stone, but if there's an issue or one of our benefit officers or accounting or Sean or Tammy request one, then.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
For the $1 million.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you
There's
know,
liability.
Yeah, I
that's
know.
exactly why we hired an auditor. I think that has been money very well spent.
Yeah, is there any public comment on that? Thanks. Well, Jim, you're here and we are talking about our 2025-2027 strategic planning summary. And hopefully to adopt today.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you all again.
Morning.
I think maybe what I'll do, if it makes sense, is just take us on a tour through the summary and I'll just kind of highlight the updates as we go through.
Okay.
Basically, the process that's gone so far, if you recall, we, as a group during the strategic planning session, all kind of worked through the strategic plan. I'd given you a primer on August 1st, and in the primer, we had gone through like the SWOT analysis and the mission, vision, values and everything. So a lot of that work you did in the primer document, I then transferred or reduced down to the strategic planning summary. So as we go through the summary, I'll kind of highlight some of the areas we updated and changed. You'll see basically the introduction is just a kind of recap of what we did on the first and who was there and the accomplishments. The background on pages 2 and 3 basically is the history of TRS's strategic planning process. We've been at it since 2009, so about 16 years. Yeah, it's been a rigorous process. I was a senior in high school when we started.
Yeah, me too.
So that kind of walks us through what we've done, and I just kind of lined it out what the strategic planning session was, and then what we did during the interim plan implementation, which brings us to page 4. This is our mission, vision, and guiding principles. As you recall, we kind of had a vigorous discussion about the mission and vision and decided to leave it the same. We did change the guiding principles a little bit. If you recall, we had, I think, high ethical standards, and we just decided to say ethical standards are ethical standards, so adherence to ethical standards. Our operational environmental assessment, starting on page 4, I'll just kind of let you scan that as we go through, but if you recall, the board made quite a few comments on that. I think we cleaned quite a bit up. And then Sean and his team, the leadership team, all looked at it, had some great comments. I think all pretty much directed towards consolidating, eliminating redundancies, making this operational environmental assessment contemporary, but also I think shortening it and getting rid of a lot of redundancies there. So that was, I think, helpful and improved the document a little bit. And, you know, we can probably continue to move in that direction as we go forward. So I'll just let everybody skim through. We got page 4 is the internal strengths. If anything jumps out at anybody, just holler. I don't want to go through it line by line because we've already done that. Page 5 continues the internal strengths. You know, our partnerships were a big piece of that, and getting our you know, we're never going to have a complete list, but trying to get as exhaustive a list of the different associations and agencies we partner with. Page 6 going forward would be the internal challenges. So these are some of the things we talked about, like potential retirements and turnover, some of the communication challenges, training challenges, resource limitations. And then on the bottom of page 6, going through page 7 is the external opportunities. And again, the partnerships show up there: training, infrastructure, communication, operations. So obviously a lot of challenges, also, you know, the same category presents some opportunities. And then page 8 kind of summarizes the external challenges. So again, you've all gone over that in pretty extensive detail as far as the SWOT analysis. Just wanted to get it, if anybody had anything jumping out, any comments, just wanted to see if anybody had anything there. Okay.
We have to have this memorized by when?
After lunch. Yeah, we'll be a quiz after lunch, see. And then page 9, basically we just did a assessment. This is kind of documenting our assessment of the current goals and the current objectives, and just kind of evaluated some of the accomplishments. And again, there was a lot more done during the period than that, but those are just some of the key accomplishments that related to the strategic plan. And again, you can see where, like, Member Brown said, I mean, some of the initiatives like the auditor in Chris's position are clearly paying off, and clearly we're good. So it's nice that we can check off some major accomplishments like that, getting that position implemented, and doing a great job. Moving to page 10, this is kind of a summary of some of the contemporary issues we considered. So we talked, as you recall, about the state legislation, some of the House bills that are summarized there. Then also we had the survey input. We got some great input from MASBO, Kim, who's here today, and MREA. So, and then the board, staff, and member surveys were all considered. I just put a few highlights like we did in the last survey of some of the comments from the folks we surveyed there, just to give the reader a sense of some of the feedback that the board was considering during the session. So I think that's really helpful, and kind of some anecdotal things. And then on page 12, we get into our organizational goals and objectives. So as we said, the goals, you know, the part in the highlighted box there are somewhat static. I mean, we've kept those goals for a few cycles now, and they're pretty broad and overarching. So I think that makes sense that we're not going to see any major changes there. And some strategic plans, they're called pillars. We're calling them goals. And then the objectives are things that are going to probably change a little bit more each cycle. Some of the objectives, obviously, like the periodic tax qualification reviews, are going to be there, or the experience study, those are going to happen every 5 years. And then, you know, some of our specific initiatives, like under goal 2, you know, expanding board and staff training, that's ongoing, but we've maybe got some specific IT things we're going to be working on. in the coming years. And like, obviously, system security is going to be a focus for our infrastructure, the business process and workflow improvements and procedural documentation is included in there. We've talked about a couple options about how we're going to get that done. So the goals and objectives kind of set forth our guiding parameters for the year. And then the final on page 13 there was just the plan implementation, kind of the steps we're going to take to implement the strategic plan. So that's kind of the strategic planning summary. We have a great idea. The board had suggested we develop a glossary. I think that was last planning session. So we're keeping the glossary up to date and keeping that included in the plan. And then that brings us to page 16, which is our commitment worksheet. And this is kind of really where the rubber hits the road for the coming 2-year period. The board went over this in detail, so I'll walk you through it. And then like I said, I worked extensively with Sean and staff on working these over. And I really think we were able to consolidate a number of these objectives. So I'll kind of walk you through that as we go through. And if anybody has any questions on objectives or sees something missing or something, just holler as I go through here. I don't want to take a bunch of your time, but I don't want to miss if anybody has any comments. So starting on page 16 of the plan, we've got the periodic tax qualification reviews that's coming up, fiscal year 2026. The experience study, we've got that lined out. As far as the work culture and service excellence, that's where we tucked in the modernizing the TRS website, mobile responsiveness, accessibility. So our goal there is to improve functionality and member convenience and legal compliance. So that'll be the section 508 and some of the review work we've done there. So we kind of rolled some stuff up, continue the business process and workflow improvements while building online processes. So we used to have things kind of broken out a little more detail, like the ORA, the online retirement application, was formerly its own separate objective. And we've kind of taken all of those website and online processing objectives and rolled them into one objective just to be a little more concise. And I think staff, will know exactly what we're talking about there. And then, we do the staff performance appraisals or individual department work plans. We may break these objectives down a little further or in a little bit more detail. So we've got the create and update comprehensive desk function manuals and the online help. I know we talked last time about possibly contracting some of that out. Sean, I think you've had some conversations. We might be able to do some of that in-house, it sounds like.
Yeah, we're exploring that. I think Jim has offered to kind of take the lead on that for 2 reasons. I mean, being relatively new to TRS, it will help him understand our processes better. And I think at least where we're starting with retired payroll, there is a pretty good amount of documentation already available, but just needs to be kind of, combined and then formatted so that in a way that will follow in all the other sections. So yeah, we're exploring that.
Perfect.
Okay.
And you'll see part of the implementation plan was to provide updates. So, staff will figure out exactly how. The board's kind of decided what we're going to do. Now staff will take that and figure out exactly how we're going to do it. And like with the documentation, is Jim going to lead the effort? Are we going to engage consultants or whatever? As that's fleshed out, the staff can provide board updates on where we're at and how we're getting these things accomplished. Things are moving on.
May I make just a quick comment on that? Something like comprehensive desk function manuals is a really deep dive, long-term task. And I'm sure you are all very well aware of this. When you look at a 2025 to 2027 timeframe, it seems pretty clear that to make sure that that happens properly, you've got to carve out the time around other things that are more short-term priorities. And that's a challenge. I know from experience that those kind of long-term strategy problems, that's the issue. You've got to create an opportunity to make it a priority in the moment.
Mhm.
So best of luck with that.
Well, at least for the initial work group that we're going to focus on, we know there's a deadline out there with a future retirement. So we'll make sure that we get through that before we get to that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, let's see, bottom of page 16. Oh, just continuing the strategic planning was an objective. Top of page 17, that's where we talked about system security. And again, these were things, a couple of these things like exploring e-signature options and stuff were broken out. So we really kind of rolled that all together and had one overall objectives for system security, e-signature kind of all together because those are all interrelated. Sean already mentioned the succession planning we're working on, maintaining competitiveness with the pay plan. Again, that's going to be an ongoing responsibility, but it's one of those things that I think is important enough that we need to keep it as a strategic objective. We want to be careful. We don't want to pare this down too much because if there's big things, even if they're ongoing, I like to keep those on the radar, and if we have things like the experience study or the tax qualification review, I think it's important to communicate to the board and our constituents that we're doing those things, even though they're day-to-day routine things. We kind of broadened the communication and outreach, integrating board and executive director participation in superintendent meetings, staff engagement at key conferences, and collaboration with partners. So those were, it's all communication and outreach. Those are formally kind of 3 separate objectives, but in looking at it, we felt, even though there's different facets, the board, the staff, it was all kind of a related objective and outreach. So we consolidated those. We'll continue the member surveys. Those have been very helpful. I think just for the little window I have with the strategic planning, those have been super helpful. And I know they're beneficial to the system in other ways. In the 2025 surveys in progress, I didn't put a specific date when we'll have that, but do you have an idea?
Excuse me, I talked to Sean about, as the next item talked about, the last item, the transitioning to a digital only newsletter. I plan to do the final printed version in November. And we talked about, there's no hard deadline to close that survey, so I can keep it open until the newsletter goes out, just to try and collect a few more, because the response is still very low.
Interesting. Okay. Excellent. So that's good. Yeah. So we'll have timeframes on both of those things that Darla is going to be working on. So thank you for that. And then continue to promote the system as a benefit to help school districts attract and retain teachers. So I think the plan's good. I really like the work to make it a little more concise and consolidated a bit. I think it's going to make it a easier read for some of our audiences, like legislators, if they're going to read it. But just wanted to open it up if anybody had any comments or there's any additional changes you'd like to see. I think some of the next steps are, once we get board approval on this, Darla's going to work on making it section 508 compliant. Okay, yeah, so some of my 10-point narrow font that I put in here may change. I suspect to get this thing to be a little bit more accessible, but generally will look as you see it right now.
I like having it all in one page. I know it's not one page, but we can see it all. I don't know, I always felt so overwhelmed. There's more and more.
Yeah.
I felt overwhelmed for Sean and the staff because I'm, part of that. That's Sean's, how he's doing in his job. So that always felt a lot.
Yeah.
So I like how it's more concise. I know it's all still in there, but.
Has there ever been any consideration of prioritizing these?
Well, I think they are prioritized by the board. That's part of what the strategic planning session was, and
Right.
we do updates every board meeting, and so I think the priority is reflected in the date that we expect to get it done. Now, there's some things that are really important that we have to statutorily do, like the experience study, that there's no need to say, well, this is number 1 priority every 4 years. I already know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
And that's a great question too, and I think really where that comes up or where that decision point needs to happen is when we start to have 2 things that are conflicting, responsible parties or resource limitations, or 2 things are supposed to be due in the same time frame. So that may be something to think about for future considerations, in future planning, or if we run into that during this planning cycle, it's like, well, we can't get this particular thing done you know, the electronic signature conversion, the 508 compliance has pushed that back or something like that, but. You know, so like Sean said, I think that prioritization is kind of baked into the plan and baked into the status outcome and the deadlines, but you know, it's possible we may have conflicting deadlines or conflicting resource requirements.
I may be splitting hairs here, but the only other thought that I had is on the pages where we're talking about goals. When I look at the language, because these goals have been so well, not static, that's a poor word. They've been so consistent for such a number of years. And if you look at this language, maintain an actuarial sound qualified retirement plan, sustain a high performance work culture, continue and expand communication. It sounds to me like these are more values than they are goals.
I like how he used the word pillars there. I
Mhm.
think that is really like our overarching, like, this is what we
Right.
stand for, kind
Yes.
of thing.
And I'm not sure that it implies a change. I guess I just wanted to make that point because goal is something you're looking out forward to in the future. And these are established goals. And then the goals that become specific in the farther, you know, in the next several pages, those are then goals that are related to these values.
Yep, yeah, I would agree, and like the chair said, maybe, you know, maybe pillar is a better term. In the strategic planning realm for
Sure.
kind of those big buckets.
Just a thought.
Yeah.
It's not terribly important, just a little
An
clarification.
easy fix to call them pillars.
Yeah.
And I wrote that down when he said that, because I feel like I felt kind of the same way, like a goal. I always feel like, yeah, we're trying,
Yep.
and we're always striving to meet these things, but I think those are our foundational parts to what we do.
Okay. I mean, that's a change I could make to the plan if everybody likes that.
Yeah.
Could we approve
Only
it
thing I would
subject to
just-
that change?
Make sure everyone knows is, we can change it to pillar on here, but when I provide our goals and objectives to the legislature, they're gonna be these.
They wanted in that language. That's a good reason to
I mean,
keep it.
I'm not saying we can't change it, I'm just so you're all aware,
Yeah.
it will get changed back to goal and objective when I send it over there. Not in this plan, because I don't send them the whole plan.
It's honestly not that important of a point, as long as
we are all.
we're aware of it. And if they're utilizing that language, I would suggest we don't change it.
Okay,
Yeah.
That makes sense.
but I think that's a really good point. Thank you. I think that's very astute and accurate.
Okay,
All right, any other thoughts, comments?
thank you for the whole process. It was very good this time, and I always like it, but
Yeah, well, thank you all and I really appreciate it. Thanks to all the staff that participated. That was a huge help and our partners and
Yes, thank
that
you.
contributed. So,
Thanks, Jim.
yeah, you bet. Thank you all.
okay, so we do need a motion to adopt the 2025-27 strategic planning summary and commitment worksheets.
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, then all in favor of adopting the strategic plan summary and commitment worksheet, indicate by saying aye.
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 Chair votes aye as well. Motion passes. All right, next thing is an information item. It is the application and benefits adjustments. Amy?
Madam Chair, members of the board, the active and entire team from April 1st through August 31st processed 495 retirees, which is pretty much the norm each year. As you can see, we were looking back earlier on our statistics for retirees and how it's grown over the years. Average termination pay was $13,554.15, and the average monthly benefit was $2,354.99, with average age of 61.03 and with 23.30 years of service.
Big list.
It is busy time frame for sure.
All right. Thank you.
So I'm sure it goes without saying, but like these averages are a little different than what you saw in the actual report, because this is just for this 12 month or this period, right? This year, where those other averages are overall, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, there's two Falconberries on here. I've never heard that before. Yeah.
All right. Then we are on to the legal counsel's report.
Madam Chair, members of the board, I don't have any pending legal issues to present to you at this time, nor do I have anything that would indicate something's on the horizon. I have an administrative rule update. The administrative rule package that we first discussed in May and submitted to the Secretary of State's office in June is nearing completion of the process. All the proper public notice, input, and procedural steps have taken place, and it will be published into law at the end of the month in issue 20 of the Administrative Register. And then finally, I have a forthcoming update to the board's policy governing policies and procedures, which dictates how we catalog these board policies that will be coming in December. When I was reviewing the interest rate policy that you just approved, I realized that the numbering of many of our official board policies does not match the numbering convention in this policy governing policies and procedures. I'll bring an updated version of this policy for your approval at that meeting, and assuming it's approved, we will renumber any policies that are out of step with the new and get them in step with the new numbering convention. The substance of those policies will not change.
Okay.
And that is all I have for you today, but please let me know if you have any questions.
It's always good news when we don't have legal issues. And then the next thing is election of officers that happens every year during our October meeting. We need an election of the chair and vice chair. We need committee appointments for budget, personnel, and legislation. So we kind of just divvy up here. Anybody is interested in being the chair, feel free. You guys keep nominating me, but if anybody really wants it, it's yours.
I'd make that nomination. Board chair.
Somebody's feelings are getting hurt, I know.
Oh.
No one can do it as good as you.
No way.
Exactly. We're gonna be the vice chair again?
Sure.
Okay, there we go.
Easy.
And then committees, I mean, is anybody interested in doing something different or everybody happy where they are?
I like mine.
You know, the great thing about me being the vice chair is whenever I get to do your job, that everybody knows how good you are.
So budget and audit is currently,
Dan Brown. Oh, yeah, it's Dan and Brian.
okay,
With an eye,
Dan C, yeah, and Brian spelled differently.
my cousin.
and then personnel is myself
And Elliot,
and Elliot. And legislation, okay, then we have Daniel.
yeah, Dan T and D Brown.
D Brown. Okay. D, are you okay with doing that again?
I am, Madam Chair.
Okay. All right. Looks like things are staying the same then, but we do need a motion.
I move that all board appointments remain the same.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Right, all those in favor of keeping the election of chair, vice chair, and committee appointments the same, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well, and that motion passes as well. At this point, we're going to close the meeting, or do we need?
Madam Chair.
Oh, we don't have to.
We don't have to have nothing to discuss. for
No
this.
disability applications. Okay, perfect. I
No,
actually was looking down there. I'm like, that folder isn't. here,
There's
so-
nothing, yeah.
No
if you
big
don't see
folder.
lavender folders down here. That's not happening.
I did notice, so I was wondering. Okay, then, last opportunity for public comment. Kim, thanks for being here. It's good to see everybody.
Yeah.
It's good to see you too. I know you're busy. Then we just need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Everybody votes aye. That motion passes as well, and we are early.
Some work for